Welcome to the final episode of the Wheel of Bliss podcast. Remember, the goal of this second season is to go deeper into Jason's understanding by applying my models so that we're able to spend next season, season 3, covering Jason's model of everything. The format is for Jason to share the Buddhist perspective and then for me to connect it to my models of the mind and brain so that we can see how and why Jason is the only person who could have come up with the model for everything. Today's final topic is Bodhicitta. This is something that we've talked about a little bit in season 1. I learned a little bit about it. We've talked a little bit about it even in this season 2. So I'm finally happy, Jason, that we get to actually intentionally, directly talk about this topic.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So yeah, like you said, Bodhicitta. It's made up of,
Chitta. I've been saying it wrong all this time.
no,
Bodhicitta.
it's my fault. It's my fault. Like,
Okay.
there's like the way we say it, but like in Sanskrit, like the chitta, it's like, yeah, I'm not a good at pronunciation either, but
Okay.
yeah, Bodhicitta, made up of 2 parts, Bodhi and Chitta, right? So I'm going to break down the 2 words, starting with Chitta, right? So again, what's fascinating about Sanskrit, the Sanskrit language evolved around the subjective, the mind, whereas Western culture, English language evolved around the object. Again, we have this beautiful opportunity to bring it both together. But so when we're dealing with Sanskrit words, like there's 6 different words for mind, we just have mind. And they're very nuanced and they're often translated the same way. So I want to really break down chitta first. So chitta can be called the emotive, volitional, and moral quality of mind.
Okay.
So sometimes we can call that someone's heart. And but also it's not a thing, it's an arising. Chitta is the continuum or temperament of the mind, that which can be trained, purified, or defiled. It includes both thinking and feeling. It is the seat of intention, emotion, perception, and awareness. It reflects the quality of being, whether loving, angry, dull, or awakened. So maybe a close word we have is like attitude, temperament, but it's not easily translated as that because, again, it's a continuum. And, all physical, if you think about it, all physical and verbal action. We haven't done an episode on karma. Karma means action, but it's more volition, meaning intention, which originates in the mind. So if I like walk and I accidentally step on something, that's not considered karma necessarily. Karma originates with an intention. And it could be unconscious, but it's coming from the mind, is what we're saying. Physical and verbal karma action originate in the mind. But you could say chitta is the root intention behind all the intentions. It's our core values, our root intention. Okay, so that's chitta.
Okay, so let me just say something here. So when it comes to the brain and mind and brain, chitta sounds like it's the conscious brain. It's the intention. You said the volition. So this seems more like the intentional part. So can't wait to hear what Bodhi means.
Okay, yeah, there is also it's considered also like a storehouse of, but yeah, there's different aspects of chitta, but that's a good way to put it. So the next word, bodhi, right? So bodhi, it means to wake up, to be aware, to perceive, to know. And, we often hear this word enlightenment. And that's what this word's translated as. But again, what is that definition? People just say, I want to be enlightened. They have no idea what that definition actually means. And bodhi is not, and now people say I'm woke, right? People say woke. So it has totally different meaning, but bodhi is not the acquisition of information. It's the existential awakening from ignorance to the truth of reality as it actually is. Okay? So what is the root of ignorance according to the Buddha? It's the dividing of our experience into self and other. So we have all these ignorances, but all of those stem from this primal ignorance of an over assertion of myself being real and others being real. And if you think about it, when you hate something, what are you doing? You're making that thing more real and you're pulling yourself away from something. So that's why aversion and hatred is a real cause of suffering for yourself. So, but you might wonder, like, well, what would it be like to function without a sense of a self and another? And again, if you think about the cells in your body, they're going about their business, all the trillions of cells, and they're eating, they're getting the glucose they need from the blood, you know, they're acquiring what they need, they're defending themselves, but they never lose the sense that they're part of the bigger system. Everything they do 24/7 is in service to the system, but they're also know that taking care of themselves, the system doesn't exist without them. So it's they have to do what they do for the body, or else they won't exist, and the system won't exist without them. So yeah. So this state, we can achieve that state as a human as well, where our orientation is no longer towards the self only or the other, but towards the system, which includes the self, right? So we call this state complete enlightenment or samyak sambodhi, right? There's that word bodhi
Okay.
again.
Yeah.
And that's the optimal state we could achieve. It's the most free, the most blissful, and the most creative state we can be. And we paradoxically achieve that when we get rid of ourself, when we get rid of this solid sense of self, and other is when we actually achieve our optimal state. So really the most selfish thing we can do is get rid of our sense of self. It's kind of paradoxical again. It's kind of like, that's why it's a practice. It's not like a intellectual understanding. It's something that you cultivate. And so you can say from this point on, I commit myself to completely benefiting others. It keeps me from creating the ignorance of separation of self and other, and helps me achieve the highest state. So in other words, if I'm, like Gandhi said it, like, you know, lose yourself in the service of others. So if my goal to benefit myself is to remove this strong sense of self and self-interest, if I'm out there serving others, what am I doing? I'm actually achieving my ultimate goal by getting rid of my selfish interest. But that's only half of it, right? So in one sense, it's like you're suffering because you're focusing too much on yourself. Go help others, and you're going to actually be happier. And that's true. But also, if I achieve that ultimate state, I can actually help others so much more. So, in other words, if I'm just trying to help others without working on achieving my optimal state, not only I might think I'm helping them, I might be enabling them. I might be making them worse. So that's why these two parts of bodhicitta are so important. And we would argue, you know, Buddha would say, and logic would even say, this is the ultimate intention we could have. You know, like for yourself and others, this is just the optimal state. Because being in a state of serving others, it destroys the illusion of a unchanging, truly, remember, unchanging is the opposite of impermanent, and truly existent, meaning the opposite of emptiness. So you practice emptiness and impermanence by helping others. But again, when you truly master yourself, you can really help others in a very meaningful way. So again, I like to describe it as climbing up a ladder. You take one hand up, and you're helping yourself. You're improving yourself. You're meditating. You're doing all of the practices to understand truth. But then with that truth, you're able to help others better. So you get a little bit higher on the ladder. But in that process of helping others better, you're getting experiential knowledge of lack of self and other, because you're in service to other. You're like, and it's very natural. Like, we'll get to that in a second too. So hence bodhicitta is the awakening heart or the awakening mind. It's not a mere intellectual understanding, but the deep aspiration of the heart towards enlightenment for all beings. So it's always that part of it. So you could think of the chitta as being three ways of being oriented. You could orient it towards benefiting yourself, in which case you're going to try to make as much money, have as much control, have as much pleasure as possible, which ultimately is not going to bring you to the ultimate state. So it's not real happiness. Then you could also focus on benefiting others. You could orient your chitta, be a people pleaser. I'm just going to do everything for others. And how we practice bodhicitta is through what we call like the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections. And those are generosity, like, right, giving people, you can give people your money, your time, your energy. Disciplined action, meaning being kind to them, and patience, meaning they harm you, you forgive them, basically. Encouragement, getting them motivated to do good things. Focus, and discernment. So you could do that for others, but you're not practicing the truth. Like I said, now you're people pleasing, you're enabling, you're doing good things, better than harming them for sure, but you're not benefiting them the most, and you're not obviously benefiting yourself because you're just focusing on them. So bodhicitta, the third option, is where we benefit the field. We call it a field of merit, the system, for the benefit of all beings. Remember, I'm included in all beings. So this is just, how can I make the right choice each moment? Because chitta arises every moment. How can I, in each moment, do? So we often do things like, you're walking up a flight of stairs, you say, I'm reaching up higher so I can get more wisdom to benefit beings. Then you walk down the stairs, like, I'm coming to help I'm completely coming down to help beings. So you could practice bodhicitta. There's books and books and meditations on how to cultivate it. So many different mental ways to do it. So we're finding the best way to do things for the most people possible. That's bodhicitta. And again, very similar to modeling God, the idea of everybody contributing their uniqueness. So, and which one of these three we choose is going to orient our entire being. Everything we do, remember, originates from our chitta. So if we're orienting towards self, everything we're going to do is going to be, at the end of the day, towards self, towards others, and then there's the bodhicitta. So I'll read a few great quotes throughout the centuries. This is from the 3rd century, Asanga. Bodhicitta is the mind that, motivated by great compassion, aspires to attain complete enlightenment for the welfare of all beings. This is Shantideva from the 8th century. He's very famous for his work on bodhicitta and emptiness. The awakening mind, bodhicitta, is like the seed of all the Buddhist qualities. It is a supreme elixir that overcomes the Lord of Death. It is the inexhaustible treasure that removes the poverty of the world. So we're in poverty because we got people thinking, we got the givers and the takers, right? But instead of giving and taking, we should be all bodhicitta-ing, This is the most famous from Shantideva, and so powerful. All the joy the world contains has come from wishing others to be happy. All the misery the world contains has come from wishing for oneself to be happy. So, like Dalai Lama, quoting him all the time, says, if you want to be the most selfish person you could be, help others. So Atisha, in the 11th century, he brought Buddhism to Tibet, and he was very famous. They called him like the Bodhicitta Lama. And he said, the mind that, motivated by great compassion, seeks complete enlightenment to benefit all beings, all sentient beings. Very similar to Asanga. So going back to this wheel again, the hamster wheel. So we talked previously about three ways you could relate to that wheel, three levels that the Buddha taught. So the first level, like the monk path, you can say, is to avoid the wheel or the matrix. Like you want to get out of this wheel. So this does not include bodhicitta. The second relationship with the wheel is, the wheel is bad news, but it's the perfect opportunity to practice bodhicitta. So now this world full of suffering, if I want to remove my ignorance and reach the highest optimal state, I can go off and be a monk. It would take billions and billions of lifetimes. But if I go into the world and into this matrix and deal with people, and I practice patience if someone does something really harmful, someone you've helped for a long time stabs you in the back, that's one of the famous metaphors. That's considered the ultimate hurt, but at that moment of the hurt, you could ask yourself, where is the self? Where is the other? And so practicing patience, forgiveness is one of the, so in other words, the second level is, I'm still on this path, but I can speed up my progress by practicing generosity, discipline, patience, enthusiasm, focus, and discipline in this difficult play. Like treat it like a video game, and that's gonna extremely accelerate my own spiritual growth, as opposed to just creating the perfect conditions and meditating all day. But then the third one is seeing that the wheel is just the arising of the divine. It's actually nothing to avoid at all, right? So the first two. So this is, I want to take this time to kind of, because you talk about the cause to effect, the effect to cause. So this is how it's explained by the Buddha. So the first, because the language is kind of the opposite of how you say it. So I want to really connect this. So we call level 1 and level 2 the causal vehicle, meaning that, because we're looking at it from the epistemological, yours is from the ontological. From the epistemological, from the individual perspective, level 1 and 2 is called causal, because I am going to, A, not get so caught up in desires of the world. That's the first level. And 2, I'm going to stick around, but in order to benefit others and practice this. So that's called causal, because you're still trying to cause the optimal state. You're trying to cause the bodhi. So in that sense, bodhicitta is a practice. The third level is called the resultant vehicle, because you start from the point of view of the result, right? You start from the point of view that I'm already a Buddha. The optimal state is already within me. But through ignorance, I've created this separation. I've created things that aren't there. So the third one is, it's already perfect. You don't have to run away from samsara. There really is no samsara. But it's all but you still have, there still is a practice, because you still have to deal with, your own ignorance. So here's my question to you, John. Why do we take the first, if we know the truth, the third level, why do we put a lot of emphasis on the first and second level?
Because I think you'd be destructive if you don't understand that.
Very good. That's definitely true. And the other part I'll add to that is because when we get to the, ignorance has many, many levels. And remember that deepest level of self and other, it's so unconscious. Like even animals are doing it. It's so deep. And it's very sneaky and elusive. And we could think we have the ultimate truth, especially if people, it's very popular to do, even in ancient Tibet, even in India, even especially now, and people think, oh, I'm just going to practice the third one. I'm a Buddha. I'm perfect. Right?
Right.
But the reason is because even if you know, like, yes, I already have the optimal state, by engaging, by practicing the first two, it brings up opportunities to catch your own ego.
Right.
in its manifest state. And if you have wisdom, you could say, if I did that, deep inside, I must still have this type of ignorance. So by the mundane, a lot of people, like, they just want to be spiritual and holy. By getting dirty, by getting like seeing, like, a lot of spiritual people avoid their parents, right? Like, see your parents, like, put yourself in difficult situations to catch yourself. And then when you catch yourself, you can trace that your action back to your chitta and say, why did I do that? And you can, and then so it becomes this interaction with your higher self, you could say, and that. So awesome. So yeah. So another quote, or yeah, another. So that's what I was saying. Like, you could look at it as the bodhicitta as the practice of bodhicitta, or bodhicitta as the ultimate state, or, you know what I mean? So, like, you're practicing bodhicitta to achieve bodhicitta. It's very common in Buddhism to call the result and the practice the same word, to really emphasize that you're really not achieving anything, but you're practicing the result to get the result. It's
Well, because if people think it's about the result, as soon as they get it, they stop the practice.
right.
I
That's
call it the
true.
finish line mentality. There's no finish line here. We're
Exactly.
going to
Well, that's
keep
true
doing the
too.
process.
Exactly, because once you achieve bodhicitta, now you get to live in bodhicitta, which is still, like, now you actually have the most altruistic mind. So they say, like, once you become a Buddha, I mean, they have so much power. They could be in 100 places at once. So it's like, but it's effortless for them. They don't have to.
Mhm.
So yeah. So if you think about bodhicitta from that result point of view, you can call it the open creative responsiveness of reality to itself. So it's very, like, poetic words. Like, bodhicitta is the self-arising awareness that realizes the equality of self and others, free from grasping. So remember, ignorance is trying to, is that separation. You're practicing bodhicitta to remove that. When you achieve it, now your mind is just in this space where it doesn't see self and other. So so finally, so we break down bodhicitta into two parts. We call it relative, like, kind of like how I've been explaining. The relative is the one that you cultivate, and the ultimate, which is the result. So, but the relative, or the practice one, also has two parts. The aspirational. So the aspirational is, you study bodhicitta intellectually, you feel it, you contemplate the benefits of it, you take a vow. There's vows of bodhicitta, like, I'm going to practice bodhicitta, and that's part one. Part two is, now I'm going to put it into practice. I'm going to practice generosity, meaning I'm going to override my animal instinct to not be generous. I'm going to be generous when it doesn't feel comfortable. I'm going to be patient and forgive when it doesn't feel comfortable. So that's called engaged bodhicitta. So that's part of the relative bodhicitta. The ultimate bodhicitta is a mind with no ego, or you could say the ego. The full range of love, compassion, joy that has no limits. Like, the ultimate state is the ultimate bodhicitta. And then Herbert Gunther, who's, like, my favorite, he's like a poetic translator. He says, the unclouded lucidity of awareness that knows and loves simultaneously, an uncontrived clarity in which seeing and being are one.
Sounds like flow.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Okay, so that's amazing. I think I have so many things to say about this. And first of all, let me just say that I think you did a really good job of explaining Bodhicitta season 1 and season 2, because everything you said in those 2 seasons to me and what you taught me there is completely consistent. But really, I can see now you just gave me the tip of the iceberg, and now you gave me the whole iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many concepts here. So So let me just take them one at a time. I love what you're talking about with this self and others. And when you were explaining that, my first thought was analysis and synthesis.
Hmm.
Our brains naturally work to analysis. Our brains naturally look at things, break them into pieces, separate them out, create categories. That's the opposite of everything you were talking about here. So you're right. Like this is something that we're going right to the core of your thinking. Like your brain is naturally made to analyze and break everything apart and see everything as individuals. Your brain naturally does it. It's naturally racist and sexist that way. And this practice is trying to help you be synthesis. Don't see everything as individual parts, see it as the whole. The second part of what you said is in modeling God big time. So it's this motivation. And when you talk about one of my favorite things to ask people is I used to ask people, what's your definition of selfish?
Hmm.
And so they would say, because they're trying to do this altruistic thing, which is you shouldn't get anything back. You should just give and you should not get anything back. And I actually, when Modeling God came out back in 2007, I gave a talk at a little cafe called Harmony Cafe. So it was kind of Buddhist, it was kind of Christian, and I had to talk with the manager to have them clear me to give a talk on Molly God. And she talked about altruism. And I said, nobody is altruistic. And she's like, I am. And I said, okay, give me $50. And she goes, why? And I go, if you're altruistic, there's no why. You just give me the 50. I need it. Give it to me. So it's like the minute we do the why, it's like, okay, now what? So what is your definition of selfish? And when people say, they used to say to me, well, selfish is doing something for your own benefit. Then I used to say, okay, so I probably should have sex with that woman over there. Because if I don't have sex with that woman, then my wife won't be mad at me and then I'll keep my marriage. And isn't that selfish? I think it's real selfish. I'm not having affairs on my wife. And they'd go, well, and it's like, this is where we get back to a definition. Like you can't say selfish. What I would say is when you look at selfish, I'd say it's basically you're trying to gain in the short term and you're going to lose in the long term. So the thing is self-interest would be you gain in the long term and you might lose in the short term, which is close to what you're talking about here. When you're talking about motivating people, it's like, hey, do this discipline, do this hard stuff because it's going to lead to happiness and all this stuff. Now, there's a term above that, which is called rational self-interest. And I think this is what bodhicitta is it's not enough for me to go around doing what's going to benefit me in the long term if it causes you to lose in the short term or in the long term. So I shouldn't be gaining at your expense. So thinking about this synthesis, you could call it synthesis self-interest. Is there a way that you could help others gain? Because it will mean you're gaining as well. And that's the flip. And I taught that for years. Well, now I'm seeing that's exactly what you're talking about here. Bodhicitta is wait a minute, are you helping others gain? Because you'll gain. You'll gain in helping others gain. And it talks to karma, which I want to say that kind of for the end because we finally get to talk about karma and it's a big thing. But I just wanted to say that when we're motivating people, it's like there's pride, there's selfish, there's self-interest, and then there's this synthesis or this rational self-interest where you're actually trying to help other people gain, which I love in everything you're saying here. What's interesting is when you listed the 6 perfections, whenever anybody starts listing stuff like that, I have the intangible driver checklist in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm checking them off. And there's 7 tangible drivers. You listed 6 perfections. So which one did you leave off? You left off administrator. What's the third level? The field. It's administrating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just funny. It's like, it's those 2 steps. It's like the 6 perfections lead to the 7th, which is now you'd be administrating. You're helping the whole field. You're helping the whole group. You're seeing everything as a group rather than individual. So I just thought that was like super consistent when it went through with that. So do you have any comments about that before we go to karma? Because I definitely want to talk about karma.
Well, no, this leads into karma. Do you
Okay,
want to
go ahead.
start?
No, go ahead.
Well, okay. So, so when we talk about things being a matrix, so if things, when, why is it a big deal that the external world might not exist? Well, if the external world exists, then there's possibility of randomness, and your actions don't necessarily. If you get away with something, you get away with it. Like it's just started from the Big Bang. It's always been the matrix. Like people who don't see the matrix, and it's everything is material causes, which leads to biological causes, which leads to the mind. Basically, consciousness evolves from biology, which evolves from matter. Right? Basically, it's all chemistry. Um, but if what's arising is a reflection of some deeper coding, then justice, karma can perfectly enact, because in our act, if we steal something from something, the system knows we just put that code in. So karma, people have a very simplistic understanding. It's just a feedback. It's just you get what you put out. So the thing is, this is where it's interesting with bodhicitta. If you're like, well, I know if the system is gonna reward me what I give out, so I'm just gonna go give all my money away because it's gonna come back. I'm gonna go do all these things, and that's true. That you will get that. But so what bodhicitta is, we say that there's bodhicitta is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Meaning that in the beginning, before you do any good action, generosity, anything you're going to do to benefit others, if you set the intention ahead of time, may this benefit all beings. So you're initially cultivating that in your chitta, that you start off with the intention. Then while you're doing the action, you do it in the sense of no separation of self and other. So when you give someone the money, you don't get this sense that I am giving them money. It's just, this is just money moving. It's not a self, it's not another. That's in the middle. And then at the end, the good karma is going to come back to you. But you set the intention, what we call dedication. I just got good karma. Instead of it coming back to me, may that good karma instead of coming back to me, let me give it to the field so it benefits all beings. So you could cash in all that good karma to go to a higher rebirth, we would say, or even in this life. Like if you're just going around giving, everybody's going to like you, and yeah, you could be very rich. But if you dedicate that good karma, so that's what we, that's kind of like, so like you could be cultivating a lot of good karma, but you're giving it all away. So it's like an extra giving, and so yeah. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so that was great. So let me go back to the start, the first part of what you said, because you actually went cause to effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go affect the cause. I'm going to go opposite of the way I normally do, because you're pointing out a really interesting point about this. So if there is no arising, if there's no karma or justice behind everything, what's everybody's number one fear? that person's getting away with something.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's what everybody's, when I talk to people and I try to help them pursue this path, it's, well, but they're getting away with something. And I go, no one's getting away with anything because of karma or justice. No one's getting away with anything. But if you don't believe in karma and justice, then people are getting away with stuff. Then you're going to feel like it's your job to equal out the justice. You're never going to equal it out the right amount. And now you're completely distracted from the internal work by what's going on externally. And isn't that what we're seeing in the world?
Mm-hmm.
People out there, doing all this stuff to other people because they think people are getting away with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I know from the unconscious brain, no one gets away with anything because the person's unconscious will get after them. So I love how you pointed that out. If there's no arising, if there's nothing keeping track of justice and karma, then people are going to be getting away with stuff. Then people are going to be distracted that
I
people
would
are
say
getting
if
away
there's
with stuff,
nothing,
and everything's worse.
if there's nothing that's causing the arising outside of the arising.
Right. So now I want to go through this 3-step process because in modeling God, when I talk about justice, and it's one of the first 3 chapters, I say you could also see this as karma.
Mm-hmm.
And karma done the right way is essentially is justice. In modeling God, I talk about there's this salvation model, how people get saved, and then there's this reward model. Because so many things in Christianity actually work off of this, you were talking about this karma or this value or this justice that you're acquiring or investing. And so then people sit there and go, well, it's not really justice or karma if you're giving in order to get. And I say, if your intention is, and you're thinking about I'm trying to control this and do this, then you're not really giving without expecting anything in return. You said there's this, it's good in the beginning, it's good in the middle, it's good in the end. And your beginning was the intention before you do anything. Where's your heart?
Mm-hmm.
Where's your intention? And the way I say it to people, but I say essentially the same thing you say, but I say, you got to give up control. So that's my way of saying you can't have a bad intention or a controlling intention. You have to truly get to this place where you are giving up control to this thing. So you have a good intention because you're just giving. Then you do this thing. You have to give. You have to basically put justice. You have to get on the wrong side of justice, because if I give $20 to somebody, I'm owed $20 by the universe. So the thing is that it's, so if you look at it that way, now the third part,
Yeah.
somewhere in the second to third part there, what's really interesting is that I say to people, if you really believe everything we're talking about, if I give $20 to somebody, the thing causing the arising has to arise in a way where it's going to give me 20 back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I say to people, do you think I want you to pay me back the $20? Or do you think I want the $20 to come from the arising? Because the arising can give me $20 in a way that it's worth 200.
Well, I was going to say, we typically say that it comes back tenfold. Good and bad.
Good and bad. I like that. Right. So that's the thing, is that if you really have the right intention and you really believe this, then what happens is you're giving, you're not expecting anything in return, because you know something's going to come back. So you give up that. You're not looking for it. You're not saying, hey, when am I getting my thing? You let it go, and it comes back in a way. Now, before you get to that third part, ideally, you would want to give to somebody that has a different, this is a lot of what modeling God's about. You want to give to somebody who values things differently than you do. So if I give something that's $20, it's worth $20 to me. to someone who that's worth $100, if they are living bodhicitta, they're going to want to give me $100 back, or something that's worth $100 to them. But that, if I'm with the right individual, when they give me that thing that's worth 100 to them, it's worth 1,000 to me.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, if you look at it, I mean, at the heart of everything that you've said is really something I say to men. I say, every man was raised with two, when we talked about truth conjunctives, every man was raised with two conjunctives. Okay. The first conjunctive is take more than what's taken from you. So all of us men are like, hey, if you're going to get ahead in the world, you need to take more than what gets taken from you, because that's how you get ahead. If I take more than what gets taken from me, I'm ahead. The second conjunctive is hey, when something gets taken from you, don't respond in a way that causes you to end up in jail or ends up getting you killed. Crap happens. Basically, that second conjunctive is, hey, it happens. You're gonna lose. So us men are raised with, I'm constantly looking how to take more than what is being taken from me. And when something gets taken from me, I just make sure I don't end up in jail. I'm not going to do anything bad. What I do to help all people, but really men are the ones who really need it, is the opposite is really the way to get ahead. It's to give more than what's given to you. And then especially to be strategic and give to people who are going to, like, either they're not going to give back so the arising can give to you, or to give to people who you want to be in community with and you want to make their life better. They're going to make your life better, and everything grows from there. So to me, it's like the giving is the only way to do this, because the other option is to take. So when you look at bodhicitta, it's like, if you don't believe in this, then you must believe in, you need to take more than get what's get taken from you.
And it's so true, because when you look at the so-called atheists, that's literally how they see the world. Like, and like, if you press them, they'll have to admit, like, yeah, like everything is like, I just have a kid so someone can take care of me. Everything is selfish, because
Right.
in that view, there's nothing beyond, the flesh and randomness. And they don't actually live this way. When you see, like, I'm thinking of like people I know, they don't actually live it, but that's their intellectual framework. And it's really, it's more work because it's not based on truth. So
That's an amazing point. And another amazing point I think about, that is more work. And these people are exhausted, whereas we're talking about a life of flow.
Yeah.
And all those quotes, we're talking about happiness. We're talking about this. You're losing yourself, whether it's yourself or others, and you're flowing back and forth. It's amazing. That third level is really what my book Modeling God's Wills is about, which is God's trying to, the thing in charge of the arising is trying to bring harmony, peace, and all the stuff in, but it can't unilaterally enter the matrix and do all that. It wouldn't be just. It'd be bad karma that way. And we might be shown we don't want it. But if you are accumulating karma and allowing the author of the ariser to have that karma, the whole world can get better. And so I love that there's this third point in there. So one of the things, you sent me a video during season 1 that absolutely shocked me. And it was talking about, for Buddhism, there's these two workings. And one is like what I talked about with salvation. It's you making progress on this path. But then the other one, I call it the reward model, like I was saying about just karma. They talked about merit. Can you talk a little more about how Buddhism actually has this merit track too?
No, it's like the same idea. It's really like a bank account. Like when you do, it's a currency. When you do good karma, like it doesn't even need it's just so built into the reality, the way things are. Like you call it the unconscious. I would say, yes, that's true, but it's in the unconscious because the unconscious is a reflection of a deeper principle, meaning that karma or this feedback is just automatic. It doesn't require God sitting there watching everything. It's automatic. It's so and I think it's interesting because you might find this interesting because with this third part, the dedication, it almost blends together the salvation and the reward because so merit,
you're right.
Merit is like, I'm going to go do all these good things. So what we say is like, if you do all these good things without dedication, with a sense of self and other, if you do it from that state of ignorance, you will get a ton of merit. And they say that in your next life, you'll come back richer, more handsome. Like, for example, each one of those paramitas, each one of those perfections, if you practice patience and forgiveness, that's the cause. The result is an attractive appearance. And you could see that immediately too. Someone who's very angry, if you see someone angry, it's very unattractive.
Right.
So we say that so generosity, you would imagine in your next life, you will have come born into a wealthy family. So you can, so we say that is the lowest path. It's the lowest of the positive paths, meaning giving with this sense of self and other, not dedicating. It's better than doing harm because that's going to send you into hells, into lower realms. So you do that and then you think, well, I'll just keep doing good and I'll get richer and richer and richer. But what happens is when you get up to the high level, you get to a point when you created the causes and you forgot what created the causes. You're enjoying the wealth so much you forget about that. And what happens? You plummet. And we talked last time about the three sufferings. The second sufferings, the loss, going from a high realm to a low realm is more painful than burning in hell for like a long time. That losing something high, that addiction to the heroin, for example. So that's the lowest of the paths. But the highest of the path is to keep getting this merit. Like I make a joke, like if I wasn't dedicating all my merit, I'd be a trillionaire. Because I'm doing so much bodhicitta. I'm doing so much of these deliberately practicing, but every time that wants to come back to me, I say, I don't care about the money in this life or even next life. I want samyak sambodhi. I want the highest level because that's when I'm really going to enjoy myself the most and be the most benefit of others. So it's like you're able to you could look at it in a more biblical sense, like give my good karma up to God for the salvation. So you're trading in the reward for the salvation. It's kind of
Right.
how we see it.
So the thing is before I met you, I wrote an article it's a chapter in a book, on LinkedIn, and it was called "How to Become a Karma Trillionaire." So it's funny that you said you say the same thing. That's amazing. So I said the same thing. Bodhicitta is this life of flow back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is to accumulate all this value is not balancing this out. In Christianity, salvation is by grace through faith. And then once you're saved, you're supposed to continue growing in grace and faith. And that's called sanctification. So there is this, like, it's kind of ensuring your salvation. But notice the way you grow in sanctification results in reward. So there is this crossover where you're more ensuring your salvation because you're getting more enlightened in a sense. But the result is you are chitta doing these things that acquire this reward. So that's how, I can see both those happening together and it growing. But it gets back to what you're saying. You got to have the right intention. It's got to come from enlightenment.
Everything is
If you're just trying to get ahead without enlightenment,
Yeah,
You're not going to
everything.
go.
Like if you, I mean, the Buddhist teachings again, so vast. The most literature in any topic, I would say, is Buddhism, and yet it all comes down to just that, your intention. And my teacher Jim,
Right.
that was always. If he taught me one thing, it was always like your intention matters more than anything.
Right. So now the dark side of this, because you
Okay.
mentioned about the 10 times. And I've taught people everything we're talking about here. I've taught them in my own words, but I've essentially taught exactly the same thing. When somebody knifes you in the back,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about that. If you forgive, if you say, I want the value from, and this is what I say in modeling God. When someone does that, I say forgiveness is the statement of your will. You won't equal out your own injustice or the injustice done to you. Excuse me. You won't equal out the injustice done to you. So the thing is that when you do that, then you acquire that karma and they now have to pay that. So what I've taught people is the biggest badass in the world is the one who forgives. Because just like I said, would I want $20 from you or $20 from the arising? I want it from the arising. Would you want to lose $20 from me giving it back or lose it from the arising? And that's the thing is I have had people who taught me the intention part. Where I really learned this intention was on the negative side of this. I watched people who were so good at going, I forgive them. I'm not going to get back to them. And within a day, freak accident to that person. I mean, I could sit here and tell a bunch of stories and it caused me to go, whoa, I'm going to give a person a chance to equal it out. If somebody owes me something, I say to them, hey, you owe this 40. Do you want to pay it back or not? And I'll be honest, I don't care if you pay it back to me because I'm going to forgive and I'm going to get it over here, but you're going to pay for it. And I'm just trying to help you. What do you want to do? And if they say no problem, I truly go, great, no problem. I've totally have the right intention. I've totally given up control. I totally look this way for my karma for whatever's going to eventually come. And no joke, we get all sorts of reports on all sorts of stuff that happened to people. And so I have
You
seen
can't
this.
do it with the intention that they're going to be hurt.
No, because I've said to people, look, if the rising thinks the way for them to experience suffering is for them to win the lottery, you got to be okay with that. I am not in control. Like that's witchcraft. Start going, I want,
Right,
and it's not forgiveness for me to go, I want burning bamboo shoots stuck under their fingernails. It's
right,
like, well, you're not forgiving. You have some sort of plan. It's like,
right.
no,
See,
I
this, what you're
totally
talking
forgive.
about is so interesting because this I've never seen directly in all the Buddhist literature, but it resonates that you can
It's the other half.
actually, because we talk all about patience, forgiveness. It's one of the six paramitas. It's the Dalai Lama says we have two people responsible for our enlightenment, for our samyak sambodhi, our teachers, the gurus, the lamas, and the people who harm us, because the people who harm us give us the opportunity. You can't become a Buddha until you master patience.
Right.
So it's like that's a way. Yeah. So it's really the same idea. This idea of merit is literally. It's like if you think of it exactly how you do. That's why when I was reading Modeling God, I was shocked. I'm like, wow, like this is like you get this better than 90% of the Buddhists I talk to. Like literally, they
Yeah.
just
And it's,
don't understand. Like they still think like scream at the politician, not knowing that a president is the karma of the collective. So many people's all the justice and all. And if you're hating that president, if you're putting hatred toward it, if you want to control, like you're saying, you're trying to control it, you're literally causing what you don't want. And as a Buddhist, you should know that. That's Buddhism 101, and they don't get it. That everybody is in this level 3 without looking at, if there's something I don't like anywhere in the world, you have to look at yourself.
When I realized what you just said years and years ago, I became a registered independent
Right.
because I truly wanted to go. We're a two-party country, and I truly wanted to say, I am not in either party. I'm not against either party. I forgive both parties. And I do not have the karma of either party of what they're doing to this country.
And that's like the
So
whole definition of wisdom and freedom is when you don't, when you're able to not go to one of these extremes. It's, again, it goes back to the self and other. This is my team versus your team. Once you've done that, you've created this separation which doesn't really exist. We're still part of the same system. We're still, and from the, you know, what's causing the arising, you can call it, like Carl Jung calls it, the collective unconsciousness, the Christ consciousness, like that. What was I going to say? That, yeah, like that is the cause. So like, if you're angry at the arising, you're totally missing the whole point.
and ultimately, the ultimate form of forgiveness is that you would help the person hindering you. And you know, my son has known me his whole life, and you know, he's in his late 20s. And just this past week, he kind of said to me, well, he actually did say, you know, I think we've teased you long enough for you being a jerk, basically being tough on people, being, you know, having the truth and stuff. He goes, I now realize you're the most compassionate person that I know. And I'm like, but he said, because you'll help people you hate. Because I don't know anybody else who actively helps people they hate. And it's all from everything we've said in this entire episode is ultimately it affects the field. It only hurts me to hate, to try to hold people back, to try to wish people they're ill, and actually helping people I hate is a way to gain, to have the real good intention. And hopefully it's to reach them. Hopefully it's to soften them and help them go, you know, oh, this is great. But ultimately, I know it's all going to equal out. So this episode is the last episode of season 2. And this is really like the key to happiness. This is like when you talked about that path and this achievement, it's like this happiness, this bliss is something you're going to want to keep going.
Yeah,
okay?
Bodhicitta is the path of salvation and reward, you could say.
Right. So the thing is that next season, we're going to cover your model. And what I love about this, you can do a preview. There's the physical representation of the model. Look at that. So I highly recommend watching all of season 2 before we get into that model, because the very first episode, we're going to talk about the Matrix, which was the impermanence episode. And we're going to talk about basically bliss, which is bodhicitta. So it's funny, but it's like if you really don't get what we were saying here, and I love the way that this was the last episode of this season, because everything in your model's leading towards this. So it's not just you get here. Do you understand all the causes to get here? So we're gonna start next season. So do you have any comments about your model or next season before we sign off?
No, I would say, yeah. I mean, it's best if you can obviously catch up, but we're going to explain it in a way that if you just start there, if you just, you'll be able to get it. But yeah.
Yeah, and so we're not going to be going through all the the gory details. We did that this season,
We'll
but we are going to be referencing every episode of this season. This season was not willy-nilly or just, let's fill out 8 of them. We kind of had a hard time holding it down to 8 for everything that we're going to cover next season.
Yeah, I'm glad we covered karma today, because that would have been the next one. But there's still so much. I mean, because there's different types of karma, and there's it's amazing science. Like when you really we'll present it, over time, but you would, it's like a perfect machine. Oh, and I'll say that one other thing about the model is that, like, it's like the model is not just like, again, an arbitrary model. It's like you reach a point when you start to think about God or the divine, and you realize, like, what would be the most perfect way to make things, so I go with the assumption that reality is made in the absolute, like, best way possible. And with the model, I'm going to prove that that's the case. It's because
Absolutely.
that the only way, if and again, it all has to do with logic. If you start with what we have, like, that's where Buddhism starts, right here in the matrix. If you start from there and you look at how this could be happening, you realize it has to be impermanent. And then if it's impermanent, it has to be empty. And if it's empty, it means that something is causing the arising. So again, the model is based on all of these genius Buddhist, like, masters before me. I've definitely kind of synthesized it and presenting it in a way for this time.
Well, I think you presented what caught my eye, and we'll talk about this in season 3, but it's so efficient. It's so straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
I've written books that cover what's in the model, and the books are all this thick.
Yeah.
you can explain it, like, so efficiently. And when you did explain it to me that very first time when we were in a Starbucks, I was like, have you ever written this down? And I'm like, let's write this down, because I think I could actually write it down. We don't have to write a book. I could write it on one page. And that's what is absolutely mind blowing about this model. It is something everybody can grasp.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you, man.
Well, thank you, Jason. This was an awesome season. I'm ecstatic. I learned so much more than I thought I was going to learn this season. I can't wait for season 3. So thank you.
Me too, John. We'll catch you soon.
Bye.